sister, Lando. He's going to be hanging out 2021. All right, we started YouTube Live. Thanks, Professor Clark.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another week of Tech School. Thanks everybody for joining us either on Zoom or via YouTube. We look forward to today's topic. As we get started, I just wanted to let people know about the CSUSM Fall Innovation Challenge. We're currently finishing up our top 10 finalists videos. So each one will be submitting a final video presentation, a pitch video to a panel of judges coming up in the next week. So we're getting close to finishing that up and announcing the winners. So look forward to sharing that with everybody. I'll now let Stephen introduce the topic, our speaker today. And
Awesome, thanks, Sam. Yeah, we're all excited to hear more about that innovation challenge and see how it goes. So we got an exciting speaker today. We got Johanna coming on. She's going to talk a little bit about some things with your pitch deck and kind of spread some or share some knowledge there. For those of you, either if you're watching this recorded or if you're watching this live on YouTube, feel free to give us a like, leave a comment, share your thoughts, whether it's a question or just sharing your thoughts on the information that was shared today. All the interactions we get with videos like this help push it out to more people. So that like that you gave us or that comment that you shared could push this out to an entrepreneur or somebody who really needed to hear some of the message today. So if you have a chance to do so, feel free to do so. But I'll hand it off over to Johanna.
Hi. So we're actually, Carling and I are going to tag team this one. And we're going to talk a bit about pitch deck. Let me set up my screen for sharing. Okay, it should be sharing now.
Yeah. We can do full screen too if you can or not.
I think I can actually, because I don't have any notes or anything in here. Let me see. How's that look?
Looks great.
Okay. So before we jump into the actual deck, I just want to talk a little bit about decks. Do you all have decks already? You want to do thumbs up if you have one?
Yeah, do a little thumbs up.
Yeah. A virtual thumbs up. Look at that. Nice. Good job, Vivian. I see cameras on. So I want to talk a little bit about why we need decks. And I know you sort of need them for practice, to have something to present when you're practicing pitching, and you need them when you are talking to investors. But there's also some other reasons to have a deck and other uses for your deck. Have you all thought through some of that? Why don't you unmute? Let's just have a little quick chat about it. Does anybody? Are you using them for anything else? Chirp, chirp.
Oh, I know most of the time some of the startups are using them for competitions, Johanna. Yeah, because a lot of our co-founders and founders, all of them are students. So a lot of them use it for competitions to actually gain some funding. Usually like 80% of our are like, okay, we have a competition. There's a competition going on in Cal State San Marcos too. So that's the most of the time I've seen it. The other part is actually doing some sort of fundraising. Mm-hmm. And maybe the smallest part might be the fact that they're using it like how we use it at Fokcus, like a tool to help them understand their business and stuff like that. Yeah, that's like a small part.
So I also was thinking, I just want to sort of change if we haven't already started thinking this, I want to change our mindset a little bit about our decks, but that they can be used to talk to people that might be potential partners or co-founders to really, concretely present your idea, as well as to demonstrate that you sort of have thought through all of these aspects of your business. You can use them for potential employees, to especially early stage startups. You're a company that most people haven't heard of, so you really need a tool that helps people understand what your business is. You can also use them for onboarding when you're bringing interns on, when they don't really have so much say in what your business is. It's just an opportunity. Then this is another good tool to help people get a sort of a big picture view of what your company is. To wanted to have us think about it as a tool beyond just fundraising and pitching and competitions. Kai, did you want to
Well, I think one
say
thing
anything else about that?
Yeah, I think that one thing we learned this from Forbes, there was one Forbes article that kind of helped mold me a little bit on what we should teach founders. But the three things that Forbes said CEOs need to actually have is they need to be able to learn how to plan. And when you're doing your pitch deck, it's a lot of planning involved, right? Even if you're doing your financial slide or your team slide, there's tons of planning. The second thing they said is execution. Let's go to market slide. Like where are you going to start at? What's your solution going to look like? How can we execute it? But the third thing that's really interesting that Forbes said that came out like wow, it really inspired me in a lot of ways is that every CEO needs to know how to story tell. They need to tell their story in a nice, concrete way, a way that actually in some ways people can connect with them and engage with them. So a pitch deck does all three of those. And that was one reason why when we did our city highlights, and we'll talk more about that, we always focus on everyone's pitch deck, even if they weren't doing fundraising or part of a competition. We focus on that because we know that was going to help those three skills.
That's great. I completely forgot about that Forbes article. So I'm glad that you brought that up. We're going to talk a little bit about just 6 to 7 slides today, and then there will be a part 2 about this, but these are the really critical slides that you need to have in your deck. And the first one that we start with is called the billboard slide. Kelly, you want to talk about why you call it the billboard slide?
Yeah, we did a lot of these city highlights and things in LA, and me and Stephen went with the USC. LA has tons of billboards everywhere near Hollywood and things of that nature. And I always found it was fascinating that they can give you so much information in this kind of 3-second time, right? And we found out that one of our components was psychology that 3 seconds, you need to capture someone's attention in 3 seconds, and that will actually gain you another 30 seconds, right, of their attention span. So we said this billboard slide, this first slide, can you actually convey something in 3 seconds? So we start looking at billboards and comparing billboards. I think my thing on billboards was the fact that I would look at billboards and even use them during city highlights. Like, look at how this DoorDash billboard catches your eye, and it even tells you what it does, right? So that's why I named them kind of these billboard slides.
That's great. So we used to do this program called City Highlights, where once a week we would have one founder come and present, and we'd have a group of like 6 to 8 mentors, and sometimes we had even more than that, provide feedback. And a huge focus of those sessions was this billboard slide, which seems really simple and really straightforward, but actually tells a lot about your business. And if you want to look at some resources for billboard slides, you can check out the article I wrote a couple of weeks ago about the billboard slide on our blog. If you just go into our blog on our website and search for the word billboard, you'll be able to find the posting pretty quickly. So let's dig into the content on this slide. There are a few things on here. There's a logo.
Oh, we might have lost Johanna. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay, great.
Joanna. Oh no.
What we can actually do, I can tell a little bit about it. And it was really crucial when we did City Highlights that we got all this feedback from different groups about this billboard slide. And the logo was actually one of the crucial things. You guys know I've started a lot of different companies, even when I was younger. And so the problem I always had was like the logo and the name, right? Even when I was younger, I had problems internationally, just my name, because it was someone else was using it. So I always said this billboard slide was really crucial for me. And I can kind of talk to it when Joanna gives it. But as you guys know, we had a couple of people talk about intellectual property. And so the problem I always had was I didn't actually always had my copyright and trademark before I launched, right? Or had some of those things. So the billboard slide, why I always have startups focus on that is because the name is crucial, right? Making sure you trademark that. And we use this one website that's really crucial. It's called Open Corporates. You guys can write it down. Think of like corporate America, but opencorporates.com. And some of our Apple executives always use that when they talk to a new startup. They said, okay, what's the name of your company? And then we would go to opencorporates.com. Right. So we want you guys to always do that. But the billboard slide at least emphasizes that you have to have a name, right? And it should not be active in opencorporates.com. What Open Corporates does is actually kind of goes through all the active, we call it copyrights and trademark that's going on. Second thing is actually your logo. We actually feel like, I know, Brianna, we always talk about this back and forth on your company, like what the logo should look like. It doesn't necessarily have to be I would say a permanent logo. Fokcus logo has changed about 5 times. My other company, Net Zero, like it changed like 300 times. But you should start off with at least one logo, right? Something that someone can actually use, or t-shirts. If you see my shirt right here, we at least have some swag we could give out with it. So it's actually really important to have that billboard slide focus on your brand, right? And the last thing on that billboard slide that's really crucial is actually having it where you're looking at, and this is really important, you're looking at what this tagline is. For that DoorDash example, which is really fun, I usually tell people, is that in LA, they were all over. I don't know if you guys know DoorDash. DoorDash actually provides food. It's like Uber Eats. It brings food to your door, right? And the billboards got me because it actually just had a picture of my favorite things, these kind of street tacos. It had the word DoorDash with this logo. And it had this one tagline that always got me. It said, bringing deliciousness to your door. It was beautiful. It was really well done, right? And I actually felt like that is a perfect billboard slide. If we can get most of our founders to have something like that, like enticing, doesn't have to be street tacos, because not everyone like me likes street tacos. But if you can have something that's enticing in that billboard slide, that is actually kind of crucial. I think Johanna is back on. Johanna, you back on? She is.
I'm back. I lost my internet connection completely.
Yeah, so
I switched over to my hotspot. I don't know why I lost mine and you didn't lose yours, but I'm glad that you were able to continue.
Yeah, so we just went over billboard slide and just talked about the DoorDash example, my favorite billboards, and we talked about Open Corporates, which I know that's your favorite thing, right?
And that website's listed in the blog post, as well as a couple other resources.
That's great. So
you ready to go to the next one?
Yeah, we can go to the next one.
Perfect. Oh, look at that fade in. I forgot that was there.
Yeah, that's nice. You want to talk about this one, Johanna?
I do. So this is, I call it the teaching slide or the surprise slide. We watched a video, I think it was Justin Kahn, who's one of the founders of Twitch, talking about how he gets pitched all the time, all different stuff. And he said his favorite pitches and the most compelling ones are the ones where he feels like he gets to learn something, or where he's surprised, or people aren't just spouting information at him that's common knowledge. So if you can tie sort of some really concrete numbers like this to your presentation, or to your talk, or to your idea, then one, it shows some credibility, and two, you can maybe surprise or delight your audience. It's a way to really concretely engage them. So we all kind of know this statistic, it gets quoted all the time, that 90% of startups fail. But these statistics are kind of interesting because this is what happens with mentoring. So 89% of businesses that are mentored actually survive, and 70% of them survive more than 5 years. 77% of them create or retain jobs. And there's 106% revenue increase versus 14% without mentoring. So it's a really dramatic impact on something soft like mentoring that people don't really think about. So think about the ways in which your business has an impact, or where you solve a problem pretty dramatically, and see if you can pull together some numbers. There's also something wrong with this slide, and I have left it in here sort of as a teaching tool, but your slides should be clean. They should have large fonts and lots of white space, or whatever color you decide is your resting color for your eye. But this stuff here, teeny tiny and hard to read and distracting when somebody's trying to talk to you, shouldn't be on here. So I said this stuff, and that should be adequate. You could put a little more detail around these numbers so that it's more clear that those are the numbers with mentoring, but this teeny tiny text, unless this is a reader deck, shouldn't be on there. Did you also talk about branding each slide, Carly?
No, you can add that.
So another thing that I like to see is on each slide, you have some indicator like this little, here, can you see my pointer? This little, we can see this little logo or bug down in the corner that gives your audience a reminder of your brand and sort of where they are. That's all I wanted to touch on for that slide. Carly, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, that's fine. And we'll get some side questions. Like we'll get some
Perfect.
questions.
I saw something just pop up.
Yeah, it's great.
So this is the problem slide. And this is what we think that the core problem of entrepreneurship is, which is how do you find answers when you don't know what the questions are? So you can't like Google, like, what do I need to know for a startup? Because you'll just get way too much content. So it's really, really challenging. So you need to think through what your key problem statement is in just a very concise way. And then also in a way that, so you need to clearly state your problem, but it also needs to be a way that generates empathy, like that needs to be relatable, that people can easily say like, oh yeah, I do have that problem, or I know somebody who has that problem. Carly, did you want to?
No, I think that covered it. I think the key thing is that storytelling aspect. We want to be a thread throughout the PowerPoint, throughout your presentation. We have a couple questions that we want to stop and add.
She did say. So her first question is just about the stat about mentoring in general, or mentoring by a specific organization. The data was just about mentoring generally. There's a study. I think I have a link to it. It's pretty interesting. I'll have to hunt it down. I haven't showed this deck for a while, so I don't have it current, but for sure I can find the source. Is a pretty interesting study just about mentoring. And then why do we start with the benefits of mentoring without establishing what the problem is first? You can rearrange these slides. I don't have a strong opinion, and I'm not sure that there are any hard and fast rules about the order of the slides. You can start with your problem, or you can start with sort of something that's catchy. But I like to have that stats slide first, just because I think it starts the conversation for us. But if you want to, if your problem slide is more compelling, you totally start with that first.
Yeah, and I think usually we do tell groups that if you look more detailed in that, if we're doing a presentation, we actually talk about all these aspects of why startups fail, right? And we just have that 90% part, but in our speech, we talk about the problem, right? But we actually just put one minute. So it does actually have two aspects of it. Talks about the problem, failure in startups, and we talk a little bit about that, and even talk about, I think I put the fact that only like 2% of VCs money goes to women and stuff like that. So I go deeper into the problem when I'm talking about it, and we just have that part. So it is kind of like a problem slide, but then we go into the benefits of mentors right there.
And then I'll just sort of clarify that this is not Fokcus's pitch deck. This is a sample content pitch deck that happens to use some of Fokcus's content because that was near and dear for us. But This isn't our actual pitch deck. This is a super cleaned up, simplified tool for helping people understand what types of things go into pitches or into decks. So then after the problem slide, I actually have a solution slide. So that first slide wasn't our solution slide. It was just sort of an informational, conversational slide. So Kai, did you want to talk about problem and solution anymore?
Well, I think the key thing with your solution should just be really clear. I feel like this is our first generation of what we did our solution one.
It is. This is quite old.
yeah, so we have other iterations, but what I told the cohort before is like, start with something, right? We actually said we did want to make it simple. So we use ABC part of it, where we actually said like, everyone will remember ABC. Even our internal team remembers ABC. So we wanted to make sure everyone knew the solution and could say like ABC: assessments, business mentor, and core resources. So we started there. We kind of transitioned out of that, but at least at first, I think everyone on our team still remembers ABC. And if I forget anything about Fokcus, right?
Yeah, it's been easy.
It's easy for everyone else. So make sure your solution is easy for your whole team to actually kind of digest. And if they're at an airport, or if they're talking with an investor, you might have your interns talking about it, but they'll remember, oh, what we do is kind of ABC. We do assessments. So that was one reason why I kept this on here as an example of one. I think also having some sort of picture, if you're a kind of like a web app, having a picture tied to it. I think those things are all best practices, but I like showing people what Fokcus was initially, because it shows that you can start with anything. You can launch with anything, even though you'll be able to pivot.
And a little note on photos. Photos are really compelling. So if you can do these slides visual, with photos instead of with text, that's great. We did a project. We had a mentor for us who suggests that we do a branded photo shoot. And I really love that we're able to go back over and over and use those resources without hunting around for things. So we just spent an afternoon and we got a group of people together, and whatever assets we had that had our logo on, we had these stickers printed with our logo, and we put them on coffee cups and notebooks and pens and all different stuff, so that instead of buying merchandise, we just bought these stickers. And then we had a photo shoot in a coffee shop of people, holding and, writing in a notebook that had our logo on it, or wearing shirts that had our logo on. And so all of those photos are assets that we own. We don't have to pay any fees for those to use, for the rights to use those photos. And they all have our branding on them. It ties together really nicely. And that was such a great suggestion. And so if you have and you can do it, around your house, you don't have to go anywhere. I know there's, we're not going out as much and we're not getting together in groups, but you can still, have your team do that, and you can do that yourself, or you can do it with your household. The people in our photos are, I think they were part of the Economic Development Council in San Marcos. They just happened to be in the coffee shop, and we knew them when we said, "Hey, will you be in our photo shoot?" And they were all dressed in business suits. They looked all professional. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the people specifically from your team, but it would encourage you to think about how those people represent your brand, though. So if your brand is about diversity, or it's about elderly people, or it's about some specific population, you might want to think about incorporating those types of faces in your photos. That's just my little aside.
No, that's great.
Okay, the next slide. This can be like milestones, accomplishments, history, but it tells a little bit about your journey, like where you've been. What are your key things? So we started with our 577 participation. When we launched this product, when we launched our initial website, we participated in these are all the programs we participated in. These were our, in July 2018, we hit 10,000 matches with our system. So there's some, we launched marketing here. We participated in a program at Cal State San Marcos here. No, we launched a program here. So anyway, these are all sort of milestones from the beginning of our journey through whenever I had created this deck. And this timeline is actually automatically generated from Microsoft Project. So if you are a tools person or you have access to those things, it's a plugin called Office Timeline. There is a free version. And if you just build in these little milestones, you can quickly automatically generate something like this, and you can color code your different deliverables and your milestones and set the widgets, and it's a pretty nifty tool.
Yeah, I always like that you were able to generate them.
Yeah.
So if we had updated, you just like regenerate it for something too.
But I also wanted I mean, I love the tool. I'm definitely a tools nerd, but I also want people to be thinking about how what your different milestones are. There are all different types of milestones. They're participating in a program, they're launching a product, they're hiring someone, they're building out a portion of their business. There's lots of different ways to think about milestones and show the progress that you've made. And if you sit down and do a little brainstorm around this, you'll find that even if you're at a very early stage, you may have accomplished quite a lot.
Yeah, I think that one great thing I've been learning just through this whole process, and I think I talk with Professor Clark too, when we look at founders, and then when investors look at founders, or even partners look at founders, they look at if they're committed, right? This actually shows a lot of commitment on what we've done. But if you show a timeline of the certain things, that milestones, it shows commitment, right? It also shows another C, we always say, it shows us that you're very competent, right? That you can move forward, you can plan, you can do things of that nature. And I think those are actually key. I think this is the last thing is coachability, but the main thing, a milestone slide does all these things to add a little bit more credibility as you as a founder. So I always liked it. It always did help me out to show that we were making some strides, right? So you always need this kind of morale booster, like, okay, like we did that, we're moving forward. Okay, 10,000 matches, this is great, right? So it did always help me out too as a CEO. And as CEOs, you guys got to know you need all this optimism. In fact, it's kind of like overconfidence, right? Because the things that you're doing are so important, but it's very difficult. So I always like that Johanna was very conscientious on making these milestone slides, even just for internally.
And also, if you want to nerd out, if you're into behavioral economics, there's tons of articles about entrepreneurship and overconfidence. It's pretty interesting reading. So the next slide is the team slide. And we always laugh about this because we took all our names and we turned them into fake names. So there's Robert Curling and Robin Johansson and our other founder, Andrea. We always called her Andrea Robinson by accident. So, and then this was one of our advisors. But have a picture and have what their role is, and maybe just a few key accomplishments. There are some wow factor things that may be in the history of some of your founders that people wouldn't necessarily know, that they've founded other companies, or they've had successful exits, or they have PhDs, or there are lots of other types of accomplishments that you can highlight, or that they're really passionate about something, or that they have 80,000 followers on Twitter or whatever. There's tons of different ways that you can highlight the skills and accomplishments of the people on your team.
Yeah, I would say like everyone has a superpower. So this is where you actually kind of list your superpowers for each person. Exactly. And then you can actually, it's kind of a session. As a founder, you can talk to everyone in your one-on-ones, like, oh, you'll learn more of their superpowers. And so this is kind of like an exercise. It's kind of like a group activity to list those. So this slide, this is like a kind of group one. The only other thing I would, add is this concept called founder market fit. You most always hear product market fit. Oh, yeah. Product market fit means sell something that people love. That's product market fit. People love actually DoorDash. People actually love things like Uber Eats and stuff like that, right? That's product market fit. That's what most people try to aspire to. But what is one of the key things is this founder market fit. Meaning that if you're a founder, like I say, even like Sunny, who's actually knows a lot about construction and landscape, she's a right founder to create a solution to help with those people, right? That's a founder market fit. And so you kind of want to have it in here that there's some element that you're the right person to start this. So that's the only thing I add. That's why this is actually a crucial piece that a lot of my friends who are VCs, they look at this slide and the market slide a lot. Because they always want to actually believe in the team first, because the solution changes. It pivots. That's the only thing I was going to add, Johanna.
That's great. And I like that you emphasize that you should get your team's input. We struggled a little bit in getting input from some of our team members. We have some quieter people on our team that don't necessarily want to be highlighted on a slide. And sometimes it is a little challenge to get them to talk about like what's amazing about themselves. So you may have to help your team out with this, but just persevere. You'll and you can, keep fine tuning it, keep revising it, keep updating it as you discover things about your team and about yourself that resonate with people. Then you can use this to show like this presentation's a little dry, so you could put a little personality in here.
We have a question from Brianna. She says, is it appropriate to have a get to know the founder slide if you're a solopreneur?
That is a great question, and it leads really nicely into my next slide. So yes, totally appropriate. But you also can think about your team as being more than just the people that report to you or the people that are actively working on your product, but they can also be your advisors and your larger support network. They can be your suppliers. A word of caution when you list people as your advisors, though, is make sure you ask them first. We've seen our faces pop up on websites, and it's been a surprise. And it's much nicer if you ask people before they sort of discover that you've listed them as an advisor and put that information out publicly.
I did like one time I was surprised that I was on the slide as like advisor, but they won the competition. So I was like, oh, that's great.
That was good.
It's totally fine. I'm okay with that.
Exactly. And most of the time the answer is going to be yes. If you have a close enough relationship with that person that they're probably going to say yes. It's just sort of a polite thing to do. And then the other thing is like here, we listed an attorney, we listed a VC. To think about in Noam Wasserman's book, Founders Dilemmas, which we've mentioned a few times, and there's an article on the blog about that as well. He talks about team, and you want to think about what are the skills that you're going to need to accomplish your business. Oops, sorry about that. I think about who on your team represents all of the things that you're going to need. So if you're building an app and you're a solopreneur and you're not technical, like who else is on your team or your extended team that represents that? And if you have a partner or something, you can put them here as advisors rather than directly on your team. Or if you have a person like Curling who is one of your advisors who also is very technical and has this background, or even Stephen in AI and machine learning or software development, then you can list them on your board of advisors, and it sort of shows that there is a person who really is very competent in that area who's helping your company, progress.
That's great. We have a good question from Tripty.
I heard a lot of conflicting things about including a lot of advisors. Like if you have this huge, great team of advisors, they should be on your team. Do you agree with that? Yes. I do think you don't want to be like a solopreneur with 30 advisors. Then to just have a bunch of people telling you, here's what you should be doing, and nobody doing the work. So I would be selective about who you include. And I would really just think about maybe there's some basic things that all businesses need, right? You need sales and marketing. You can lump them together. You need, maybe you need some sort of technology. If you have a technology element to your business, almost all businesses have something to do with technology or manufacturing and being able to understand those things. And then you need maybe some financial advisement, and you need legal, and you need and then you kind of need just general leadership. So if you can think about those really large buckets, and then maybe one or two skills that are very specific to your business, like somebody who really knows construction. So maybe for Sunny, she really knows the construction business. So she represents that competency on her team. But if there's like some really well-known construction company that is a stakeholder and an influencer in the community, or a name that people will really recognize, that person on your board is usually impressive. Like for a while we had like Google and Amazon and Apple people on our, board of advisors. And, as an AI and tech startup, that looks good, right? Even though it's several people, because our business was largely a software business. Colleen, what do you What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
no, I think you covered it. The only thing I would add is that I usually tell founders start off with maybe 3 advisors first.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why on our slide has 3 advisors, right?
Yep.
Especially if you're a solopreneur.
Yeah. But I definitely have seen, 30 people or 20 people on a side like this. And that sort of just looks like noise. It's hard to zero in on whether that's meaningful.
So we're at that kind of like 12:30, 35. We got to the 7 slides, Johanna.
We did. And I had one other thing that I was going to share really quick.
Sure.
And then we can jump into any more Q&A. Or let me see. Your screen sharing. Stop sharing.
Only thing I would add on the advisor kind of entity is that we've had to, as groups go and move to different phases, their 3 advisors has changed, right? Once they launched, they got pre-seed money or they reached 1 million users. Like, don't worry about your advisory board looking different, because for each stage you need different advisors. So and that's fine. That's just the growth of your company. So that's the only thing I was going to add, Johanna.
That's great. So is this sharing now?
It's sharing. Yeah, it is.
Great. So we've talked a bit about the City Highlights program that we did. We did quite a few of them at Apple, and then we migrated our program to University Club to make it more accessible for more people and to allow us to record the sessions. And then we did quite a few there. People are missing this program and they really loved it. So Carly and I did a chat over the last few days and said, maybe we'll relaunch this. Carly, do you want to talk a little bit more about City Highlight?
Yeah, I talked to the cohort a little bit earlier on the fact that pretty much what Fokcus was known for was their City Highlights. In fact, bringing one founder in and kind of showing so much love by bringing all these great experts in on and tackling 1 or 2 problems. That's what it was. It wasn't tackling 1,000 problems, just 1 or 2 problems, but all in the context of a pitch deck. So that's why we started off by doing a pitch deck session in early 2021. And I thank you, Johanna, for kind of setting this all up. But I think it was really important to show founders, especially founders, maybe underrepresented or female or veterans, that we did know they needed support, and we were going to provide that support for them for free. And so I think that was important, that we're helping the community in that way. So thanks for showing this photo. I think that's Eric and Chris. That's Perfecto, as one of our veterans that was making this great coffee experience with the app. But I think the main thing is we're going to kind of bring it back. We're going to at least start it this quarter, like maybe once a month, and have 2 founders each. Yeah.
I really love this session because it was really fun. There's actually 3 attorneys here and a graphic designer, as well as the founders. And there's a few other people off camera that you can't see. I'm there as well. I'm taking the pictures, but they actually designed the logo for this company during this session, and they're still using it, and refined the company name. And it was a pretty impactful session.
It really helped them launch, right? Yeah. And I told our cohort too, and everyone around, we do want our groups to start launching so we can get more information and momentum and things of that nature. So I think City Highlights was to actually help people start launching and have that confidence in it. So thanks for showing this photo. This is great. Sure. Eric, I'll tell Eric.
Tell Eric he got highlighted on City Highlight.
You got a good highlight.
And I think that like one of those lawyers now works for Uber and.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We helped launch them a little bit. They got more into entrepreneurship. So
exactly.
We help the mentors out too.
Yeah.
So I think we can open up to Q&A if anyone has any other questions. I know I see Sunny is on. I see Tripty. Dominique's on. How you doing, Dominique from San Diego Startup Week? She's gonna mention. So yeah, if you guys have any other questions, I love all the questions that we had in flow. That was actually good. But if you have any other questions, that'd be great. You guys can just unmute yourself.
So I have one on the team. Oh, and first, thank you, Johanna and Carly. It was very informative. So I think as it pertains specifically to this conversation, I think what people do is they spend a lot of time polishing up their pitch deck, right? Mm-hmm. And in order to show it in the best light, right? And I think one of the key areas that I wanted to talk to you about was the team slide specifically. So we've had questions about solopreneurs. We've had questions about, how many advisors do I put? Like, and essentially what it is like, we're trying to, we know how important this slide is. We keep getting told the team is so important. Curling spoke earlier about the team product fit, the team market fit, and so I guess I wanted to know what your thoughts were in terms of how deep people go into that, because my experience, or what, again, like my thoughts are that like throwing a bunch of like LinkedIn profiles and pictures and backgrounds on a slide gets you to, oh, wow, this team really knows what they're doing. But then as you progress further along with conversations or diligence or whatever, the questions start becoming, how real is your team? And this is not the first time I've heard it, like over and over. How real is your team? And that's, I think, part of the basis of my question about the advisors, is what are your thoughts on that? When do you ask that as an investor? What is the balance of not just projecting yourself, if I'm doing this all by myself, so don't take me seriously because you're going to be like, hey, you're all by yourself, versus I can do this by myself. I am doing this by myself mostly, but I have some people who are helping me. So I wanted to know what your thoughts are on that balance of how do you project that effectively? And when is the point where you say, here's what's actually real versus here's what I had to present to get you guys the deck?
So my opinion on this is that the people that may potentially invest in your company are people that you're thinking about adding to your team, and you want to be honest with them. And so I think that you do want to present yourself in a positive light. You want to get their attention. But I would be really careful about whether you list people on your team and versus as an advisor. And to me, on your team means they do work. Like, on your team is not like, I have this person who said they'll help me out with my startup, once I get investment money and I can pay them. That's not on your team. That's an advisor. It's a friend. It's a person you can bounce ideas off of. It's a person who may give you a small amount of their time, but they're not really on your team. The people on your team are the people that show up and they do work and they create work product, or they promote you, or they have meetings with you regularly. And then there's some people who are going to be in an advisor role, like a mentor that you might meet with regularly, but they're also not really on your team. They're not doing work. They're just helping you and encouraging you and pointing you in the right direction. So I would be careful about who you claim is on your team. And if it's really just you, you can talk about, it's just me. Here are all the skills that I have, and here's all the things that I do right now. And here's where I know my weak spots are, and I'm actively looking for people to fill this. And in the meantime, I'm filling the gap with having, these consultants or these vendors or, this YouTube channel or whatever it is that's filling the gap, so that they know that you are humble and self-aware and you totally know that you can't do it actually all by yourself. It's a very rare founder that can actually do all of the jobs. It's a lot.
Yeah. And it's not that I disagree with you, because I do. Yeah. I totally agree with you. But I think some of us have been more fortunate of have teams, and some of us don't. And I think that's just another obstacle to access, is that you have a lot of people with great ideas that don't have a team. And you hear things of like, don't outsource your tech team, don't outsource your product team. But if you don't have them, how are you going to get in front of people? Presumably you're putting a pitch deck together to get investment. How are you going to get in front of people that will help you fund that investment in these people? I think it's a conundrum that it's really more philosophical. I just want to know kind of what you guys think of it. It's a problem.
I think Sam probably has something to say about this as well. Like, probably if you're at the point where you don't have all of those roles filled, your product probably doesn't have a lot of traction, and you're not going to be that appealing to investors at that point anyway. So then you're just building relationship and telling them about what you're doing and what your plan is and creating the touch points. Sam, did you want to? There's been this shift in the way that investment works and the way that companies are founded.
Yes, Sam, he's available.
Sorry, I put you on the spot, but I know that you will always comment on this.
So when it gets to the point where we're talking about teams, right? Your team has to relate to specific points in your business model.
Yeah.
And so usually the co-founders, the two people, if it's a two people, a lot of times it's a two people founding, is because one person sells the product, that's their expertise, and one person builds the product, that's their expertise. So usually when we see two founders, one is, maybe more business minded and the other one's more engineer minded. And then as you start that process of developing your business, you're going to identify other points within the business model in which you need certain types of expertise. And that's where you're going to plug in additional members of your team. Now, here's the thing. It might be hard to convince people to invest some money if you, for example, you're building a tech product, but you have a business background, no engineering background. Or it could be difficult to convince people to put money into a venture where you're an engineer but have no business. So that's where that co-founding is valuable, in finding a partner that believes in what you're trying to do and building that team. But always think of team members as filling very specific roles in your business model. Now, once you get to a point where things are moving along, the other thing I always think of when you're talking to investors, it's okay to have a missing team member, right? As long as you identify it, say, here's our business model. Here's how each of these 3 or 4 people fill these roles. We're missing this role. Because that may be the reason why you're seeking funding, right? Because when you go into an investor pitch, what the goal is to have identified what inefficiencies you have, what challenges your business is facing within its business model. And once you've identified those, you're going to identify how much money it needs to fix those problems in your business model. And oftentimes there's different ways to fix it, right? You can fix it with people, you can fix it with technology, you can fix it with outsource. There's a lot of different ways in which you fix each of these inefficiencies in your business model. And it is oftentimes people that you need. And you're going to ask investors to put in money. Going back to one last thing Johanna was saying, right, is that really when you're thinking of investments, investors are going to invest at different points in the business. I always like people to consider, like, if you have no operating business model, there's no products being created. It's more of an idea stage. You're likely going to be looking at friends and family for funding. That's the people who believe in you individually, but until you get to the point where you're operating a business is when you're going and selling products and having customers. That's when you're going to start talking to other types of investors, like angel investors, venture capitalists. Angel investors are the types of people I described who fix problems within your business model. So an angel investor is going to come in and you're going to say, we're missing this key role. If we had this role, this is how they would improve our business. It's going to cost us $100,000 to do that. The angel investors would invest in that type of business. That's the types of things that angel investors typically invest in. When it comes to venture capitalists are not looking to fix problems in business models. They're looking for scalability, right? They want a business model that works, and now they want to duplicate it 10 or 100 or 1,000 times. And so they understand how much it costs to operate that business model. They're going to then accelerate its growth. So those are kind of differences in who you talk to based on what problems you're trying to solve financially as a startup. Joanna, I'll turn it back.
Thanks. That was really helpful. I wanted to address one other thing related to Tripti's question, which is, if you have some really amazing people on your team that have done startups before, they have a track record of success, you don't have to put as much attention into your team slide, because if you say, like, I have, the founder of some, of LinkedIn, is one of my co-founders, then, like, and you're solving some problem that's somewhat related to that, like, they have this track record of success, and you can leverage that. So if you have somebody that's on your team or in your network that's willing to participate in your team in that way, then I think you don't have to put so much effort into figuring out what the story is that you tell around your team, because you just get like a pass, right?
That's great. I think everyone came up. We have one more question, Joanna.
Yeah.
This is from Dominique. It says, "What recommendations do you have for finding a co-founder?"
That is a whole talk, huh? I think talking to people about your idea, the more people you talk to about your idea and the more people you get excited about your idea, the more likely you are to connect with people who want to solve the same problem that you solve. I think one of the ways that you find those kind of people is by actually working on solving your problem. And even if your company's business doesn't solve the problem yet, you can still volunteer your time and your effort to solving that problem, and you'll encounter other people who are also passionate and giving their time to solve those problems. And then in terms of finding people that are maybe they don't know that they're passionate about solving your problem yet, but they're technical people, they're engineers, they hang out in their caves and do programming stuff, and they don't talk to people. Those are harder to find, but there are events and activities and places where those people do go, where their jobs are, hackathons, Reddit message boards. I mean, there are tons of ways to sort of find those meetups. There are tons of ways to find those types of people as well. And then the path that Curling always suggests, which is sometimes you can't necessarily attract someone with a really proven track record. Sometimes you have to grow your team, and it takes a while to do it. It takes a while to take someone from I'm a student and I'm an intern and I don't have any tangible work experience. I just have, my character and my passion and my motivation and my energy to contribute. But sometimes those people, because you gave them a chance and because you helped groom them and you gave them, meaningful work, they'll be so committed to your team and to your project that they will make a great co-founder. And you can find them through senior experience and 577 and programs like that.
That's great. Thanks for answering that question. That was a great question, Dominique. Stephen, I know you always do one last question. We can squeeze that in, Stephen. You can pose to Joanna.
Yeah. So I'm gonna mix it up a little bit. I know Joanna's spoken for us a few times, so I'm not going to ask her, the same question I usually ask some of our founders who hear it for the first time.
Get a zinger.
But it's similar. So my question for you would just be, and could be a question for you, Joanna, and Curling. I know you've been doing a lot with pitch decks for quite a while. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you ran into when you first started, making pitch decks and learning about it?
That's good. And if you can keep it down to 1 minute, Joanna, then we'll do speed networking and stuff. We'll have time for that.
Sure. Well, do you want to answer the question?
No, I think you should answer it. I think it's fun.
I'll just tell you what my biggest challenge was when I was first doing a pitch deck is that I didn't have a template and I didn't understand what went on each of the slides. And so when Curling and I met, it was actually, we were both helping a startup, and I had written the pitch deck for this company, but I had never done a pitch deck before. And so I was just desperate to get feedback. And so I'm out to dinner like with Curling and trying to show him the pitch deck, like on my cell phone, like, could you please look at this? So I think, for me, like just this challenge of like, what is a good pitch deck, and looking at lots of very successful fundraising companies that was so far removed from where I was at idea stage in my company, to just be able to pull together the story of the company that I was working on was really challenging. So I'm not sure if that was a direct answer, but definitely just getting feedback on a pitch deck can be really challenging.
That's great. And Trippy, thanks for adding in some additional things for Dominique. That's cool. That's great. Okay, Stephen, we'll wrap it up and we can start speed networking. I know we have a lot of new people, and I think a lot of people want to probably talk about what they just heard. So let's do that, Stephen. Thank you, Joanna.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Joanna. Thank you, Curling, for that insightful talk. Thanks, Sam, and Tripty and everyone else who was able to to add some comments and add some insight in there as well. Just to kind of wrap things up, just to, I guess, reiterate what from the beginning, if you have a chance, if you're watching this live on YouTube or you're watching this recorded, right? Feel free to give us a like, leave a comment, share your thoughts, whether it's a question or whether it's, just sharing what you thought about the video. We'd love to hear it. We're always, looking for feedback. We want to learn from you as much as you might want to learn from us. But one of those things, the likes and comments and things like that do on videos like this is it helps it push it out to more people. So that like or that comment that you leave could push this out to an entrepreneur really needed to hear a few things about their pitch deck, right? So it's an easy way, quick and easy way to give back to, the startup community if you can. But as always, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode of Tech School.